This is the Body Talks with Vera, where we dive deep into movement, strength, and joy at every size. I'm Vera, your host, and each episode we're having real conversations with people who are redefining fitness, confidence, and what it means to truly live in our bodies. Whether we're talking powerlifting, nutrition, running ultra marathons, or radical self love, this is a space where every body has a story. So we're going to get into it. Today we have Emma Shull. Emma is an educator, podcast host, and burlesque performer dedicated to disrupting the status quo one story at a time. As a creator of the Fuck That Shit, a season-based podcast, she shares personal stories and amplifies voices that challenge societal norms, whether through conversations on body liberation, erotic labor, or
Mm.
beyond. A recovering overthinker, Emma uses storytelling to spark radical honesty, self acceptance, and meaningful dialogue. Welcome to the Body
Hell
Talks, Emma.
yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited you're here. We were just talking a little bit before, and it's been like almost a year since we've chatted
Yes.
together on your
Yeah.
podcast, but social media
It's
doesn't
almost
seem
like
that way.
it's
We're
like I never
constantly like,
missed you. We've seen each other every day.
exactly. We're always on the phone
Yes.
or something. We're FaceTiming and it's actually just watching each other's
Exactly.
stories in silence.
Exactly. No, thank you so much for having me here. I'm really proud of your project and what an intro. What a
Thank
platform. Yes.
Ah, I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. I'm just so happy you're here. I would love to get into it. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and how the Fuck That Shit podcast came to
Okay.
be?
Ooh, the origin story of fuck that shit. Well, as you mentioned so eloquently, I am Emma. I am not fuck that shit. I am Emma, and I am a host of
Yeah.
Fuck That Shit podcast. Beyond that, I am an educator and a baby burlesquer, if you will. And yeah, how did fuck that shit start? It started during the pandemic, and when I was thinking about the surface level aspect of it, the surface level story is it started with a little red thong bikini. Okay. And during the pandemic, I talk a little bit about this in my origin story in my body liberation season. But during the pandemic, I had happened to be the most active I ever was. I was riding my bike to and from basketball pickup games, and I was doing yoga, and I was hyperactive. We can talk more about using movement to bypass your personal shit. But my body
Yeah.
reflected that. And growing up in a larger body, predominantly most of my life, I had never one, imagine I would ever wear a bikini because of, bullshit. Two, let alone
Yeah.
a thong bikini. And so, all that to say, I'm sure I had a picture that I wanted to post, and the fear of being perceived got to me. And I would talk about it in therapy because what would people think? She's a teacher, right? And me showing
Yeah.
off and celebrating my body. And again, we can talk about the implications of that celebration, but me wanting to celebrate myself in a time that I felt most comfortable in my body, you know, fuck that shit became a mood, a mantra, and a lifestyle that I was like, wait a minute, there's something about this like disrupting phrase I can tell myself because when we get down to the nitty gritty of it all, the fear of being perceived, the fear of judgment from others, if it's keeping me from acting or feeling or speaking smaller than who I actually am and want to show up in the world, fuck that shit. The reroute to
Hmm.
just do what you want to do, right? And I've spoken with my therapist about like what does it look like challenging, what is it that I'm looking for attention versus when I'm just trying to be authentic, and that's another conversation. But yeah, if it's true to you and it'll make you feel good and inspires others, fuck that shit, do you, do the damn post. And from there, fuck that shit just opened up a whole Pandora's box of a lot of unspoken conversations. And in my pilot episode, I speak a little bit more of my origin story and some of the deeper traumas I may have gone through that I think have kept me feeling small. But yeah, I
Yeah.
hope that answers what is fuck that shit. How did it start? It started off very simple, but it's grown to be what I hope to be a movement that inspires people to stop playing small, start living free, and let's disrupt the status quo.
Yes. And I think it really has. Like, honestly, what I've been seeing online from you and even just listening to the show, like,
Thank
100%,
you.
it's very inspiring to also listen to the people you bring
Mm,
on to the stories that they're telling where they've had to say fuck
yep.
that shit to these kind of situations in so many different cases. And I really
You
love
were
that. We're
one of
going to
those
talk a little bit about that.
stories. You were, yes.
Yes. I'm so happy I was able to connect with
Same.
you and connect you in on that
Yeah.
podcast. So I'd love to talk a little bit because you call yourself a recovering
Yes.
overthinker, which you brought up a little bit. And I'm curious, how has
Mm.
storytelling helped you move through
Mm-hmm.
that?
Yeah, recovering overthinker, people pleaser, all the things that would essentially keep other people feeling comfortable, right? God forbid I live out loud, and even despite being an extrovert that I am, I still struggle with these things. And I think fuck that shit. I never want fuck that shit to be prescriptive. I never want fuck that shit to be like 5 things to do. And who knows, God forbid, I make a content piece about that and someone comes back and it was like, you're a hypocrite. But I never want fuck that shit to be prescriptive because there is no prescription, right? The prescription is you. And ultimately,
Mm,
like, what are your values? What's important to you? And it's about just owning your story. And I hope that I model that if there's anything to to share with my story. It's just that modeling, processing out loud, healing out loud, and not acting like I got it together. I'm fully still learning how to not overthink even just building a brand. Am I overwhelming people with my post? Am I annoying people with my platform? And blah, blah, blah. Like there's so many, I call them cops in the head. This
mm,
is a little nerdy, but I used to facilitate theater of the oppressed, and theater of the oppressed is a form of theater that folks facilitate conversations of oppression and scenes of oppression, and we like act out solutions. Okay, so that's the gist of it. And cops in the head are when creating these scenes, we ask folks to think about when did you hear somebody tell you you couldn't do X, Y, and Z, or who made you feel X, Y, and Z way, right? Because
mhm,
those become the cops. And whether it was a real person or because of society and how you saw other people get treated for living out loud, those are your cops. And so once I've recognized that, I've realized in my storytelling, we all have moments, and I especially have these moments where I'm acting and moving through the world from a place of a cop in the head. Like I'm enforcing whatever that cop in the head is telling me, like, you're too much. So maybe I'll like stay quiet, or maybe I'll like not dress elaborately or bring attention to myself. There's all these small things that we do to reinforce what society expects or what people are telling us to do. And so fuck that shit for me is the
mm.
reminder to do what you want to do.
Ooh, you know what? I'm definitely gonna steal that. Like the idea of it, yeah, cops in
Yes.
the head. It's oh my God.
Yeah, look it
Yeah,
up. It's
that's
very Augusto Boal is the founder, and yeah, it's very, very cool art form. Yeah.
oh my gosh. Okay, well I will look it up and I will have a little link in the show notes for that because I think that's ooh, yeah,
Hmm.
that's good. And I do love that. Yeah, it's a good way to kind of shut down that part of your
Yes.
brain that's, being mean or telling you to not
Yes.
do certain things when it's like, no, like we should be able to, and there's nothing that's like literally
Right.
stopping us from
And
from
let's
doing that.
normalize that it's okay to have those thoughts. Like,
Yes.
it's okay to worry, and it's okay to be stressed, and those are very human emotions. And even if I'm a bad bitch, I'm a sad bitch, I'm a concerned bitch, I'm a
Yeah.
worried bitch, I'm anxious bitch.
Mm,
I'm all the bitches.
yeah.
But
We can be
always
more than
bad,
one.
always
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah. Always bad. That's the
That's the
important
tea,
one there.
yes.
Oh my gosh. So I guess I'm curious, like, what were your first status quo beliefs that you remember challenging, or just saying "fuck that shit" to in your own life?
Hmm. I think, again, just kind of alluding to maybe my pilot episode titled Holding Back, right? And speaking to truths that I think are maybe easier to sweep under the rug. And so the idea of like, I have to hold in my truths because I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable, whether that be family, friends, sometimes when we share our stories, and I think this is the power of storytelling, whether it's I'm sharing my own story and my own process or I'm interviewing other people's story, we start to realize we are not all that different. And even if we come from different backgrounds and we will experience different things because of those backgrounds, I acknowledge that. but there are elements of synchronicity of like the feelings of shame that come up, and also the inspiration that you get from hearing somebody navigate that and saying fuck that shit in their own way would hopefully invite somebody to do that more in their own journey.
Yeah, and I think, when it comes to things like people pleasing,
Yeah.
for example, like we're seeing someone else step out of that and say, no, we're not gonna do that anymore. We're gonna change paths. It gives us an opportunity to reflect on ourselves when we do it. It's like,
Yes.
okay, maybe we won't, follow that same path this time, but maybe the next
Yeah.
time it'll give us that little moment of, you know what?
Yeah.
Fuck that shit.
And to be clear, we could talk about people pleasing as a form that, how do I want to say this? Like, it just came to me now, but I think people pleasing at its root really supports patriarchy, white supremacy. It supports all the things that are keeping you small. And I recognize that,
Yeah.
especially like in the body liberation season that we got to meet through. But, and I'm sure we'll talk more to it, but as my body has grown and expanded because of many factors, I realized the internalized fat phobia that I had, right? And the ways I tried to keep myself small in order to make other people comfortable.
Hmm.
Did I continue wearing my little red thong bikini like I did before and when I was in a smaller body? I had a lot more hesitation to do so because of the people pleasing, because
Yeah.
I didn't want to make anybody uncomfortable with all of that I was working with. And trust and believe I was working with plenty before. So imagine what I'm working with now. Those are the moments that you have to catch yourself and be like, so who am I holding back for? And if it's because I'm holding back because of their discomfort to being in a larger body, fuck that shit. And you put on the fucking thong bikini, bitch. Yes.
Yeah. Like, I always have to think, what what's like, where do those original thoughts
Yes.
come from too? And they come almost always from an
Yeah.
external force, an external person or society, or like, the magazine you saw in the grocery store, like something telling you you
Yep.
shouldn't do that. We're gonna be
Cover up.
uncomfortable. And
Don't
it's
say that.
really, yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's really about shutting that down. And, sometimes that is baby
Yes.
steps.
1000%.
And, you gotta do it, but like, go at a pace that feels good for
And
you.
safety
But
is
like it
paramount.
is, yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Definitely key on that. Safety is. And, but to do the steps that feel comfortable to you. And maybe it is going a little bit out of your comfort
Mm-hmm.
zone, step by step, go back into it. You take those little
Yep.
moments, you do what you gotta do because, you don't want to live a life of, like succumbing to, what a magazine
Yeah.
said, 20 odd
And I
years
don't think
ago,
we also
right?
ever really truly know ourselves unless we try different things. I mean, I think we're put on this planet for such a little amount of time, and also the Gemini in me just wants to try on and cosplay in many different shapes and costumes and whatever. Like, I just want to live life
Yeah.
to its fullest. And if you try it and you love it, even if it only lasts for a season, fuck yeah. And if you try it and you hate it, you don't get to feel embarrassed that you don't make that your identity anymore, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. It immediately brings me back when I was in high school. I was, the emo kid, the scene kid, and the saying was always, "It's not a phase,
Ah,
mama." But like, you know what? I do think of moments like that where I'm like, even if it was a
right.
phase, what does that matter? Like, was me trying to express myself, me trying to find
Yep.
myself. And, it turns out it wasn't a phase. I still
Hell
love Fall
yeah.
Out Boy and My Chemical Romance.
Hell yeah.
So
Take that, mom.
never was a, yeah, told you so.
Let's inspire all the young people to tell adults, fuck that shit. I always thought about that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I would die if I could do a workshop for young people on fuck that shit because ageism is real and let's just make kids swear at their parents.
Honestly, our words are only bad because we say they're bad.
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
we're putting a bunch of
Yep.
meaning to it. We don't need to. It doesn't have to be that
Yes.
bad. And I do think, yeah, like teaching young people, especially I think, in the current age of the world and the society we're in right now, especially in
Mm-hmm.
North America, not Northern. Anyways, I think, yeah, like there's almost like, people are talking about a recession right now, but I think also even if we think a recession in the sense of style and body
Right.
size. One thing we saw online recently was a good point was because, a lot of people are getting thinner
Hmm.
in like magazines and social media and stuff. And someone brought up the topic of, do you ever notice that when these kind of recessions or moments of panic in the world are happening, bodies are getting smaller, and it's usually as a form of
Yes.
control. And it's no, we need you fed, we need you
Yes.
nourished. We need you to be here and like
It's
fight
a
the fight.
distraction.
And I
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. And like that's not shame someone if they want to change
Yeah.
how their body is, that is fine. But you do have to kind of think of it from, a larger viewpoint with not just an individual, but when a group of people are all becoming smaller and all doing this thing at the same time, that someone who is in power is
Yeah.
threatening other people, threatening democracy even. Like what is that? What is their potential
Right.
correlations there? And something to
No,
think
it
about.
definitely is. And to your point, I think that some people, just live as fuck that shit personified, right? Embodied, fuck that shit energy.
Yeah.
And I think we need more of that because, and you can find them
Yeah.
anywhere. Everyone has somebody that they seek to or seek out when they need that energy in their life, like somebody who's rubbed up against the status quo and who didn't succumb to the social constructs and consciousness that surrounds them. They thought,
Yeah.
you know, their own thoughts. They did exactly what they wanted to do, and they didn't just follow the trends. Mhm.
Yeah, they like in a very literal sense, they listen to their bodies
Oh,
there.
the
You
body
said
talks,
it's
huh? Uh-huh.
yeah, the body is
Yes.
talking and it is saying, follow what the body
Yes.
wants. And it is sometimes in, some cases it might be following societal norms because that's what the body feels good with, but then sometimes it is
Yeah.
fighting back in whatever way that may look. So I'd love to switch a little bit because, your most recent
Hmm.
season of Fuck That Shit was on erotic labor. And I think that whole topic just really stood out to me. And I love that you decided to do that.
Thanks.
So I'm curious, why was it
Hmm.
important for you to center that work and those
Yeah.
voices?
Thank you so much for asking me about it. It's a very niche theme. And for those that are listening and don't know anything about who I am, fuck that shit is so hard to describe as a brand because it's very guided by my own journey in this world. So wherever I'm at, I'm experiencing people and things, and the spirit is coming to me, and we're rolling out seasons, right? And so the season on stripping away stigma, voices of erotic labor, was primarily inspired by the people I met through my burlesque journey. And burlesque has a profound impact on my fuck that shit journey and how I've come to really like respect my body. There's lots of it we could talk about and how the body talks through burlesque. But I remember a specific key moment, a fuck that shit moment, and we all have those, okay? But I remember, again, talk about fear of perception. I was worried about my little red thong bikini and an Instagram post, and now I've graduated to taking my clothes off on stage. You know, the jump was real, okay? Well, I remember
Yeah.
somebody saying to me, and again, just navigating the perceptions and fears of it all, like, I'm an educator, I'm worried one day someone's gonna like find me on the New York Post. And I say it every
And
time. I secretly wish it would so I can leave the teaching job.
yeah.
Okay. I want to be a martyr for the bitches. Okay. Anywho, take that
Yeah.
as you will. Um, all that to say, somebody said to me, "Oh, Emma, you don't have anything to worry about. At least you're not a stripper." And
Mm,
that was a fuck that shit moment. I don't remember how I responded, but I remember feeling fuck that shit. Talk about the body talks. Okay. We can get into the somatics of it. I just remember that it's that lump in my throat. It's the flushing of red. My face gets red because I'm heated, I'm upset. Like, you can literally feel when your body wants to reject an idea, a person, what have you, a place, yada yada.
mhm.
So I remember just feeling fuck that shit energy about it. I knew that I had wanted to do a season dedicated to burlesque. Um, and as time had gone on, I'm realizing that there's an interesting concept in the season we explore, which is called one, whorephobia, whore, like whore, you whore phobia. And then the hierarchy that I learned in my time in burlesque classes, speaking to the stigmatization of different levels of sex work, or in this case, we call it erotic labor. It's more palatable to all folks in
Mm,
the spectrum of it all.
yeah.
And yeah, I just wanted to pay homage to sex workers because as I learned through New York School of Burlesque, shout out to Joe Weldon, I understood very clearly that my introduction into burlesque could have only happened from the work and the labor and the stigmatization of sex workers. And so it was very important to me at that point that their voices were included, especially knowing that some folks that are burlesque performers do participate in different shades of sex work. And how do we have those
Yeah.
conversations? Because even within the industry, maybe some folks will be like, well, I'm a burlesque performer, but I'm not a stripper, or but I'm not a, and there's a separation there,
Yeah.
and it's a very complex conversation, and you can really get into it listening to the season. Everyone's got their thoughts, and I respect everyone's thoughts. Um, but it's a lot more complex than I had imagined. And yeah, so that's the stripping away stigma season and how it got started.
Yeah. And it automatically brings me back to when I was more into pole dance.
Yes.
And when I went to a couple different studios, and at that time there was a lot of talk about should we be including sex work into this, even though, pole dancing
Yes.
comes
Yeah.
from erotic labor. And, it was very interesting because, of course, people who are strippers, who do erotic labor, who are in this like world are like, excuse me, we are right
Right.
here. And then there's certain studios like, we just do pole fitness. It's just a
Yeah,
hobby.
right.
Like, we're stepping away from
And
that.
that's the
And,
whorephobia.
it was, mhm,
Yep.
oh my gosh, it was
Yes. It
strong.
was
It was
strong.
strong. And it was such a large conversation because, of course, like during that time it was also lockdown.
Right.
So everyone was online, everyone was having
Yes.
conversations about
Everyone was
it.
very activated.
And I was really happy. Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. I'm very lucky that the studios that I really admired were like stepping up and be like, no, this
Yes.
studio is built on
Yeah.
the back of strippers, like full
Good.
stop. Like it is not related to this Indian art form, which, a lot of people wanted to claim it to,
Mm.
but like they're very different. And like, it was like this. It was like no, it's
Come on
strippers.
now. Strippers.
We did it.
Yes.
Like, let's be clear here. So yeah, it's really interesting to kind of see like because that's immediately what I think of is that and that whole kind of almost saga where and you still see it sometimes. I know there was I think it was a show on I want to say Prime or Netflix, one of those million
Yep.
streaming services now that may as well be
Yep.
cable. They did one about pole dance, and I remember it was, you know, a lot of people were speaking out against it because it was very pole dance is a hobby. Like this is pole sport, not pole dance.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no,
Yep.
no, no, we gotta, respect the
Yes.
roots where it
Yeah.
comes from. And I think of that, yeah, like especially with burlesque too, because I did a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
burlesque way back when. That's actually how I got the name
Yes.
Vera. It used to be
That's
Vera
right.
Wild.
Oh, baby.
Yeah. Yes, yes. And I remember there were a couple students in the class I did who were a little bit on the horphobic
Yeah.
side. And I was like, that's interesting. Because, of course, I think, again, burlesque, it's related to the erotic labor. Because, again, I think of, the history of like, erotic labor being, the
Yes.
oldest profession, career
Yeah.
out there. It's the one that survived for
Yep.
so, so long. And yet you don't want to claim any ties to it because of the
Yep.
stigma around it. So I'm just really grateful for you even having just that season just to kind of put some light on it to be like, hey, like here's some people doing amazing
Mm-hmm.
things who are unapologetic about it, who are happy to, come forward and be like, I am part of this, not movement per se, but this industry. And, I don't care because this is what brings me joy. This is
Yeah.
what I want to do
Yeah.
right now. So like I
Yeah,
love
no, and I
that.
thank you for asking about it. It's with every season is an opportunity to like just dig my heels a little deeper into the work and what I'm passionate about, what I do stand for, and it's partly how we met, just in, exploring different platforms that are doing that work. And so same thing
Yeah.
with erotic labor and sex worker accounts. Like there's so much you can learn. It's such a scene and an industry that we don't speak to because of the whorephobia. And so this is an opportunity
Yeah.
just to hear from voices that are in it. Yeah.
Yeah, and, it just makes me think I missed it, and I'm so sad I did, but I know a friend who was able to go. There's an account online, I think they're called Sex Work History, and I didn't know that one of the people who runs that account, or maybe it's just the only person, I'm not quite sure, is in Toronto. They actually
Cool.
they did a multi-date tour walking around the city of Toronto, pointing
Oh,
out like, how it used to be for
yeah.
sex workers, like back in like the early 19th
Yep.
century, 18th century, which I thought was
So
so
cool.
cool. So sad I missed it, and I hope they bring it back because they had to add more dates in because it was became so
Yeah.
popular, which I love. Like, yeah, bring that history back. Like, let's
I feel
talk
like sex
about
work and
it.
erotic labor and the history of that is like a lot of like foundation of just fuck that shit energy, right? You're talking about people that, people always say sex sells, but then people get mad when you do it. Like, it's people that decided to say, fuck that shit. I'm making money. I'm gonna be a boss. I'm living on my own terms.
Yeah,
God forbid women and femmes and any marginalized community lives on their own terms. That in itself is radical. And I just give a lot of kudos to that industry and that scene and folks that work within it because it's hard
yeah.
with the stigma, but it's a very real industry and it's valid.
Oh, 100% valid. And I love that. And I'd love to kind of look back to, the season you had before that on
Mm-hmm.
body liberation. Was there a moment that cracked something open for you
Uh,
personally?
every episode, Vera. Come on now. Honestly, every opportunity to speak with a guest, I think just reaffirmed I
Yeah.
was in a really dark place when it came to my body image and self-esteem. Body
Mm,
liberation, challenging fat phobia season was really coming off of a chronic pain, injury, surgeries, and in that sense, my body did expand, right? And I've yo-yoed with my weight before, and so it's nothing new. However, there's a body grief involved with gaining and losing weight because of the way society treats you. And with every conversation, I found myself feeling more affirmed and knowing that and really unpacking the entire internalized fat phobia. Like, just because I've gained weight, it doesn't mean I'm not healthy. It doesn't mean I'm not strong. I am all of those things because I see that in everybody else. And I think that's another thing that we can be a little bit more mindful of, me and we and all the people in my head because I'm a Gemini. But I feel like it's so easy to see in others, oh yeah, of course you're strong. And of course you're that bitch. And of course, you know, but then when you have to do it for yourself, so judgmental. My God, like that's some of the shit I'm working through. But every episode was just a reminder. One, like I loved our episode because I never considered flexibility as like a part of fitness. Bitch,
yeah.
just because I gained some weight doesn't mean I can't do the splits like you. But that doesn't mean I can't lift my leg up this way and that way and you can fold me like a pretzel, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, the rules
Mhm.
aren't getting in the way. And I loved that. I also loved my conversation with Roz and just the pressure as well to like love yourself and your body, that conversation. One of my like people I really look up to in a lot of ways, speaking openly about, yeah, I feel the pressures, right, to love my body, but I don't always love my body. And let's talk about that. And then I also think about a conversation with a friend of mine, Davin, who's a personal trainer. And I always think about what he says when I get down on myself and I don't move my body, literally the antithesis of like what I know will make me feel good just by pure principle and chemistry and yada yada, but depression, right? And he said that like
Mm,
ultimately your body needs you now. Like you don't get to consider where you were or where you're headed. Like you think about the present and you
yeah.
think about your body needing you now and you nourish it, you love on it. You can have bad days, good days, but you don't get to neglect it, right? And then we can get
Yeah.
into nutrition. I mean, I learned so much and it radicalized conversations within my own friends and my own community, and it just holds such a special place in my heart because I sometimes I'll re-listen to
Yeah.
episodes when I need a little like pick me up, you know? Yeah.
Mhm. Oh, I love that. And I do really love the idea of just like your body needs you now.
Yes.
And, this going to look different every single day, every hour is
Yes.
going to be
Yes.
different. But yeah, you can't
Yeah.
neglect
You
it,
don't get to
right?
ignore
It's the only
her,
one we
and
got.
she will talk about talking. My this may not be on the agenda, but my the injury that I have was a result of ignoring so many signs, so many red flags, months of pain going up and down stairs. But I was like, fuck it. I'm going to go for this 3 mile run anyway. You can't tell me nothing. I was going
Yeah.
against what my body was telling me. because if I stopped moving, what then? Like what the feelings that would come up, I think there was an internalized, I spoke to it, fat phobia of like, well, if I don't move, what will happen with my, so all of those things combined,
Yeah.
like, but you have to listen to your body. Point blank, period.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like that disconnect you can get because of things
Yes.
like diet
Yes.
culture or what have you. Like, I know that happened for me with me, my chronic back pain. It was because I was wearing a
Yep.
corset and I refused to acknowledge how
Yep.
much pain I was in. Because I was like, no, I have the curves right now. I'm not really losing weight, but I have the curves, and that's what's
Right.
important. Which was not, because what was important was taking care of my body.
Right. Oh my
And
God.
now I'm still paying, 6, 7 years later, I'm still
Yep.
paying for it. And all I can do is, show some respect to my body, give her what she
Yes.
needs when she
Listen
needs
now,
it.
right? Yeah.
Exactly. Couldn't before, I
Yep.
will now.
1000%.
So, yeah, on that note of chronic pain, like, I'd love to actually talk a little bit about that injury and kind of even what happened, but also kind of, the now of it, where has living with chronic pain deepened or complicated your body liberation journey in unexpected
Yeah, for
ways?
sure. For sure. I thought I was preaching body liberation in that little red thong bikini. And no, it's so much deeper than that. The injury that I had was from playing basketball. I've always had busted and rested feet, okay? It's a point of trigger for me. I got the quadruple E width feet. I've always had wide feet. I've had nurses be like, "Oh, she's gonna be a great swimmer growing up," right? Like my feet are my trauma growing up and as a child, okay? All that to say, right?
Yeah.
I've always, I think even just like as a young person trying to like fit the trends would force my feet into shoes that didn't actually fit because New Balances were not cool back then. They were not cool, and I would had to wear the orthopedic shoes as a fucking middle schooler, and right. So it started from then, just fitting myself into a shoe that was like cool, right? Right. I think that
Yeah.
built up to many problems leading on. And when it came down to, I want to say like 25, 26, I got really active in playing basketball again. I played all throughout my childhood up into high school, and I got reconnected with that community. I love playing sports. I've always played sports. And it was just so much fun to always have something to look forward to each week. I'd go and play pickup with the girls and yada yada. At some point, though, like you're playing pickup 3, 4 times a week, and then you're running on top of that and yogaing and riding your bicycle. Again, probably not even wearing the proper shoes because Nikes are cool. No, they don't fit my
Yeah.
feet. And so, all that shit to say, just during a game, I felt a pop. I luckily did not tear my Achilles tendon, but I was very close to it because I had what is called Haglund deformities, which are essentially heel bone spurs. And they call it the pump
Mm.
bump, which it could be partly genetic, but it definitely can happen as like a bone callus to when you wear shoes you shouldn't be wearing. Like, okay, well, so that's why I mentioned about my rusted and busted feet as a child. So I did it to myself. And ultimately, the Achilles, what started as Achilles tendonitis, never resolved, turned into Achilles tendinopathy, never resolved. I've been in and out of physical therapy for years. I've tried some surgical interventions that my doctor said would work. They have not. They've made it worse. And I am now currently working with a functional health specialist who is a podiatrist, and we're trying like nutritional protocols, supplemental protocols to help bring down inflammation. I really like that doctor because we have to talk about the fact that even my fucking like primary care doctor is trying to push, what's that one called? Zepbound, push Zepbound onto me.
Mm.
They're like, well, maybe if you lost
Yeah.
weight, you'll feel better. And I'm like, this is not a weight
Yeah.
problem. And I'm really tired of
No.
people trying to say, like, this is because of my weight. And so, of course, this like chronic pain stuff has totally, like, even post that conversation was post body liberation season. And it totally warped my sense
Mm.
of like how I felt after that season because when you're living with chronic pain for so long, the only thing you want is relief. And so a comment
Yeah.
like that from a medical care professional really got to me. And I think there's a lot of conversation that can be had about the shame in losing and gaining weight. In society, everybody needs
Yeah.
to know how you did it, why you did it, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, one, it's nobody's business.
Yeah.
Two, like, okay, so if I did consider it, that doesn't make me any less, you know, of an advocate, right? But at the same time, you have to start like being cognizant about what are your push and your pull factors and what are they rooted in. And whenever I do that analysis and I consider about it being rooted in fat phobia or being rooted in white supremacy or being rooted in any big motherfucking term I don't agree with, I definitely pump the brakes and I'm like, I'm not going to do that. But yeah, I
Mm,
would say that like even now the biggest thing for me is just giving myself the grace. Like I have good days and I have bad days, and body grief is beyond weight gain. It's also about mobility and um so I've definitely learned and grown a lot through the process. I can't dance the way I used to dance, and so I still call myself a baby burlesquer even if I've done it for like 4 years. It all kind of coincided with like shit popping off in my life, and then my body was like, you have to calm down and you have to take big steps
mm,
back, and that kind of was a blow to my ego. But all that to
mm,
say, I do think that even though I find it to be incredibly frustrating the amount of things I haven't been able to do because of my chronic pain, I'm also very grateful of the lessons it's brought me that I may have taken years to learn if I didn't get to just sit with my
mm.
shit. So yeah,
Yeah.
I know you know.
I think, yeah. Yeah, I really do. And even to the fact like I do have pretty wide feet and I do just remember like all through high school I'm like, yeah, it was the Nikes, even like the Converse I
Yep.
had, like every shoe I wore was so bad. And I actually just think because, you being in New York, I
Oh,
think one of the times I went to New York, I brought a pair of shoes that did not fit my feet properly. And, walking around New York, especially when you're visiting, you're
yep.
walking, 10,000, 20,000 steps
Daily.
a day
Yes.
and my feet were
Yep.
bleeding. I remember taking my boyfriend at the time to, I don't remember where, one of those random big box stores, looking for just a random pair of shoes
Yep.
in like downtown Brooklyn. And I remember just like finding a pair and literally switching my dirty ass like in shoes that were covered in blood into the box and going to the cashier. And I'm like, yep, these
These
ones
ones.
already
Yep.
wearing these other ones because I'm like, I couldn't. And yeah, the amount of times, yeah, we just really try and fit our bodies, feet or
Yeah.
otherwise, into things that are not made for
Yes.
us.
Yep.
And I do think, yeah, like for a medical professional to, suggest weight loss at this day and age, it's just so
Yeah.
ridiculous to me. Because I know it still happens,
Definitely.
but what the hell, man?
Yeah, I mean, it
Like,
was surprising. I thought we were over that. Like, isn't like continuing education a thing as a professional these days? I don't know. Hmm.
apparently not. No, but it just makes you think, especially if it was already diagnosed as
Right.
tendinitis and, growing into something worse. And then that's when they're like, it was this, not because of the
Yeah.
shoes and how, like bone spurs or like the tendons doing something. Like it wasn't any of that. It's no, it's just through your weight. Like what? What if you were a thin
Yeah.
person and you said this? Like the reaction would be so much different. And that's what I think is so discouraging when it comes to the
Yes.
medical complex there.
And
Because
it's a lot. And I remember the reason why I brought that up, and I didn't quite finish my thought because, my brain. But I brought it up because the functional health doctor I'm working with now essentially spoke to adrenal fatigue and the ways that our body kind of reacts in terms of like high stress situations and injuries and yada yada and my traumas. All that to say, it amounts to your body overworking itself so much that it's actually working too much. It's on overdrive and it's causing a block in my progression in my healing. And I remember he was just talking about some of the symptoms of, and he did mention weight gain, but not in any, negative sense. And I was crying, and I I remember him saying, "To be clear, I'm not worried about your weight. Your weight is not the problem." And I that was so
mm-hmm.
affirming to hear that from a doctor because yes, I
Yeah.
am on a nutritional protocol and I've had to really like really reevaluate my relationship with food, but when it comes to just like anti-inflammatory properties and I'm really focused on like leveling my hormones and whatnot, when it became that, I don't feel a certain way about keeping to a nutritional protocol. Whereas, someone who has struggled with binge eating, right? Like tell me I'm on a diet and I can't have bread anymore, then why do I all of a sudden have a loaf of bread that's gone missing? Because she's just like an all or nothing mentality, right? And I don't feel that way
Yeah.
now. My relationship with food has changed a lot, but especially in this protocol of just trying to heal my body in terms of how it's responding to injury and pain, that's a different dynamic. It's
Yeah.
not weight based. And I wish that maybe folks, if they were considering how they're eating differently or moving differently, how can you shift your focus from not it being a number on a scale, but how does your body move, functionality,
Yeah.
actual, like you eat something, does it make you feel good? Does it not make you feel good? Those are the questions you should be
Yeah.
asking yourself.
Definitely, definitely. And I'm so happy that you are with a care provider who is giving you the care you
Yeah.
actually need, because I think that's so important, and I don't think enough of us are getting
Well,
it,
I am paying out
frankly.
of pocket. I am, it's an investment. So we still have to
Yeah,
see the fruits of the labor. It's not an overnight journey, but yeah, it's
for
definitely
sure.
taught me a lot about body liberation and just my mindset around it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great. So I would love to just go back to, the show a little bit, and I'd love to know, based off what we were just talking about these past two seasons, what do you hope your listeners feel
Mm.
after an episode of your show?
Ooh, I hope that listeners feel like, look, that bitch can do it. I can do it. And that's for any guest, right? Like, I want folks to really see themselves in every guest that we have because every guest has something to share. Every guest has been through it and has responded in a very fuck that shit manner. And that's the feeling I hope to inspire in our listeners. Just fuck that shit vibes. Yeah.
Mm, yeah. And I love that, because honestly, we just need more of it, especially right now. Like we
We need to shake
need
shit
the
up.
fuck
Yeah, even
that
if it
shit.
starts as something small, but yeah, I hope it snowballs. Yeah.
Right? Like even saying as small as saying fuck that shit to shoes that don't make you feel
Yeah.
good. Like if they
Fuck
hurt your
that
feet,
shit.
fuck that
It's
shit.
the simplest mantra you can tell yourself. If it hurts, fuck that shit.
Mhm.
Doesn't make you feel good? Fuck that shit. Someone made you feel away and
Mhm.
you're holding back? Fuck that shit. Say something.
Mhm. No, really, definitely. I love that. So, you talked a little bit about being a burlesque performer, a baby
Yeah.
burlesquer. How has that intersected with your body story and your
Oh
self-acceptance?
man, yeah. Well, burlesque was always going to be in the picture at some point because I walked in on my mom's watching a PBS documentary. Of course, PBS, on like Seattle Burlesque Academy, and
Yeah.
people were graduating, and there were women with boas and their bras and panties. And I remember like, Mom, what the fuck? What are you guys doing? And they were like, oh, it's burlesque. And then they told me what it was. And Mom had to go and be like, maybe one day that'll be you. Hold on to that. I've held on to that for so long. And it took me just maybe
Yeah.
like a year before the pandemic to sign up for a class, just for the sake of signing up for the class. Again, like I was thinking about it the other day. I always do what I say I'm gonna do. Sometimes it just takes longer, but it's always gonna happen.
Yeah.
So when I signed up for burlesque, it was such a fantastic opportunity for me to, we I think the obvious part is the body acceptance and feeling good about like showing yourself to a crowd very vulnerably, right? There is body
Yeah.
acceptance in that. I think the part for me that was the most healing was as someone who's a survivor of sexual assault and trauma, like there there are coded feelings around seduction. And I speak on this a little bit with my episode with Pearl Noir, who does healing through seduction programming. When you have kind of misguided moments with people that brings on shame and guilt, especially around sexuality and sensuality, I found burlesque to be very healing in how I express myself and how I have ownership of my body. I like to think how many people talk about burlesque being one of the few art forms that the individual has full agency. You are the director, you are the producer, you are the choreographer, the dancer. It's all on you. You get to make all the rules. And very few moments in our lives do we get to just have full autonomy. And so burlesque
Yeah.
allows for that. And it's funny, I had a conversation with somebody recently who is still kind of processing that burlesque is just that. It's your opportunity to do whatever the fuck you want to do. And they're still worried about the audience and what does the audience want, blah, blah, blah. Um, but just as much as it is on stage being able to do what you want to do, the lesson learned is people will wait and people will pay to see you and your art, and they will also wait for you to take your clothes off. So guess what, bitch? Nobody's rushing, because the more you rush in a performance, the more boring it is. Make people wait. I've just found so many life lessons in burlesque and the art of the reveal of it all, right? I think it's just so applicable in life, and I don't have a lot of shame with showing my body. And I think maybe that makes people uncomfortable because it means that they have to acknowledge, like, what are their feels around a body being exposed that does certain that works in a certain industry, that does certain work. Like, God forbid we all have multiple aspects to ourselves, right? It makes people uncomfortable when they
Yeah.
can't pinpoint you. And I think burlesque, for
Mhm.
me, it's just an opportunity to express myself. I enjoy it, and I'm going to keep doing it. And also, people will throw dollars on me at my skinniest. People are going to be throwing dollars on me at my heaviest. Like, the dollars are going to keep coming. So I'm not
Yeah.
bothered.
Yeah. I love that. You honestly inspiring me to go back to some burlesque because I do miss it.
Yes.
I'll sometimes I have a little box of, the tassels and all the fringe I used to wear. I had a Beetlejuice
Shut
costume, so I'm
up.
like, oh
No,
yeah.
that's incredible. And I think
Yeah.
too, like, for those that are listening that have never like tried burlesque or are interested but don't really feel comfortable with like taking the class, like, burlesque can also just start in your house. The burlesque for me is like mirror work. It's like putting on that music, putting on that silk robe, and like just feeling yourself, and maybe you just like give yourself a little wink in the mirror. That's burlesque. Like, just feeling
Yeah.
comfortable and confident. It's not about, it's not about a routine, as Pearl would say. It's just about like owning what you want to do in that moment. Yeah.
And I think it's also important to note, like, there's different forms of
Yeah.
burlesque too. Like, it doesn't necessarily always mean taking your
Yeah.
clothes off. Sometimes it's just a really campy performance,
Yeah.
right? Like, I remember when I did burlesque, I was very much a vamp. So I was like, yeah, let's like do the strip tease, like have like the
Hell
silk on.
yeah.
Like, I totally get it. But there's other
So many
forms too, and
flavors.
I think so many flavors. And I think a lot of people do forget
Yes.
that there's so many different aspects of that art form that, you don't have to just think like, oh, I have to go to if I go to a burlesque
Sorry.
class. Sorry, this
Yes.
cat walking across the screen.
Stealing the
If you
scene.
are just listening, this cat just walks right across Emma's screen.
Junior.
Kills me.
Junior, of
Oh my
course.
God, cats. But what I was saying is like, yeah, like if you're, maybe hesitant to take that class, or, you're like, okay, I want to do something, but
And
like,
go to
oh, I don't really
shows.
just know, like, go
That's
to
the best
shows.
way. Just go to
Yes.
shows, because there's something about witnessing other people that, if talk
Mhm.
about body confidence and body awareness, like, yeah, it's incredible to watch
Yeah,
other people and their art. Yeah, highly recommend. Hmm.
definitely. Oh my gosh. Yes. Definitely go to a show. If you feel comfortable, sign up for a
Yeah.
class taught by a seasoned burlesque performer. Like, give them your money.
Give them, if there's anything you hear from this episode, it's give them your money. Yes. Please tip the
100%.
hose. We love it.
Yeah, we really
Yes.
do. Oh my gosh. So, what do you want people to unlearn when it comes to their body or self-expression in relation to fuck that shit?
Mm. I'm gonna take this line from a friend. Actually, it's a really sweet story. Okay. Basically, what I would love people to unlearn is that our bodies are not burdens, they are blessings.
Mm.
And that comment came up from a first moon celebration. My good friend put on a party for her daughter who just had her period for the first time. And I have never been witness to an event. I know about like rites of passage, and I know culturally this works, this happens in some cultures more than not. But I've never been to a party where we're like celebrating baby girl's first period. And wow, it was like multi-generational. We had conversations about how our first period talks, and talk about the first time I was meant to, like, people made me feel like I had to make myself small, right? Like, oh, now you have a
Mhm.
period. Now, when you have your period, you hold your tampon a certain way or you hold the pad a certain way. God forbid anybody knows you have a period. How do you keep it discreet? How do you keep it cute? How do you keep it demure? Like that was that's when it really fucking started is when get coming into womanhood, right? And so anywho, this idea of the burden being the menses, right? But I just feel like it can apply in so many ways. Like our bodies are not problems to be solved. Our bodies are not burdens. They are
Mhm.
blessings, regardless of what body you have, what capacity it has. You have it, nourish it, and it needs you now.
Yeah. Mm. Yes, we need to realize, like, again, like, it's paying attention to our bodies
Now.
now. What do they need now?
Yes, yes.
Right? Um, I love that. And, I think it ties in nicely to this other next question. If you could go back and speak to your younger self about pain, pleasure, or
Mm.
power, what would you say?
Ooh, pain, pleasure, or power. Oh, man. I would honestly give fuck that shit as the mantra to my younger self. I mean,
Yeah.
I wish, and I grew up in a radical household. I grew up with lesbian mamas, and they taught me all the things of like how to advocate for myself and every other context, but perhaps maybe like interrelationally, sexually, blah, blah, blah. And, I think if I could go back, I would tell myself, like, fuck that shit is you can literally say, fuck that shit to anybody that makes you uncomfortable, anybody that puts you in harm's way, reject motherfuckers with a good fuck that shit scream, what have you. I think fuck that shit. I would have loved to have embodied that more. Could have saved me some grief, but it's okay. We're here now and we're bad. But yeah, that's what I would say.
I love that. And honestly, yeah, I think, sometimes we just have to go through the learning
Yes, we do.
process of it all to get where we are now,
Yes,
right? Like it's always a journey.
it
So,
definitely is.
oh my, yeah. Well, Emma, thank you so
Is
much
that
for
it? Oh
joining
my God,
me
I could
today.
keep talking to you all day.
No, no, we could just keep
Yeah.
yapping, but I'd love you to let people know where can they
Yeah.
find you, learn more about you, what you're doing, and of course, the Fuck That Shit podcast.
Yes.
Where
Yes.
are
So
you
you
hanging
can
out
find
online?
Fuck That Shit Podcast, and that's spelled with FCK, That Shit Podcast, on wherever you get your podcasts. And as for Instagram, you can find me at FCK, That Shit Pod. If you want to learn more about what we do, you can look at my website. I have a store now if you'd like some merch. So that's FCK, thatshitpod.com. And yeah, I'm also on TikTok, but I'm under my other name, Emma Globina, which is just like my personal account. We haven't figured that out yet. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
I love that. So, of course, I'll have that all in the
Thank you.
show notes. And final question, could you share an affirmation that reminds you, and for those tuning in too, that your body and our bodies are worthy of care and respect even on hard days?
Ooh. I'm just going to repeat myself because it was so good the first time. Your body is not a burden, it is a blessing.
Mm, your body is not a burden, it is a
That's right.
blessing. I love that. Mhm. Oh my God, so great. Thank you so much, Emma, for
Thank you,
joining me
Vera.
on this lovely
Yes.
conversation of the body talks. And thank you to those listening and tuning in. Remember to drink some water, do something kind for your body
Yes.
today, and I will catch you on the next one.